Alright, so we're back now with training log number 8. So this week, it's not exactly one I was too excited to share because it wasn't really the best week of training. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but compared to previous weeks, there was a few areas where we sort of underperformed this week. If we look at sort of the overall volume for this week, it was 17 hours, which like this isn't a deload week or a recovery week or anything planned like that. It was just a few sessions that I had to cut short. Really one session that I had to cut short, which has cost us a lot this week in terms of overall volume. Like last week was 22 hours, so we're 5 hours less this week. The swim was pretty fine overall. In the pool this week, we did 10K, pretty much as usual. The bike was down to 227 kilometers this week, and the run was about the same, though. That was still 62 kilometers this week. It's really the bike, though, that 227 kilometers, I mean, that's 140 kilometers less than last week when what was planned was pretty much an identical week to last week. So to really explain what went wrong on that area there this week with the ride, I kind of have to jump back and we'll run through the entire week so you can see what really led up to what was Saturday's long ride, which is where we really fell short this week. But if we jump back and have a look at Monday, I mean, Monday we started out with like a 4K swim. So this was supposed to be a race specific set where essentially what we do is you just jump in and you have to get straight into it. So there's no warm up. You start out with a few hard 50s, and then it's things like 300s, 800s, 200, 800. So just some longer duration sort of swims. And I think this swim, it really exposed a weakness of mine, which is the longer duration swims. So on those 800s, I mean, I was swimming as slow as like 155, 2 minutes per 100, which is drastically slower than what I've been swimming consistently of like 100s and 200s where, you know, I'm knocking out 145 pace. So when we bump it up to the longer sets, that's where I think my weakness is really coming through, which is endurance in the pool. So I wasn't too happy with that, and I sent the coach a message and said, look, we really need to work on these longer sets because Ironman's obviously a 3.8K swim, and you know, we've been doing a lot of 50s and a lot of 100s. Like our swims are still, you know, 10, 12K a week, but I think endurance specific is a real weakness of mine, and that was really exposed in this swim. So that's definitely something moving forward we're going to work on. So look, that's where we started the week. Monday afternoon, we just had an easy spin, which I wanted to do truly easy. I mean, last week was pretty solid 22 hours of training. So I used that one as a real flush out of the legs where we only averaged like 115 watts. You know, heart rate was 112 beats average throughout. So a truly easy 1 hour bike. Tuesday though, so Tuesday morning, what was planned was 11 by 5 minutes at 260 watts. I got through the first 4 of those reps at 260 watts, but after that, legs were pretty cooked. So I had to back it down to 240 watts. So I did the last, what's that, like 7 by 5 minutes at 240 watts. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a productive workout, but once again, it's not the workout we were looking for in that session. So, I mean, is what it is. You just move on from that one. And we have a look at Tuesday afternoon's ride now, which, I mean, that one was an hour 20 of just moderate. So that one was pretty cruisy. Like we averaged about 167 watts over 80 minutes. Average heart rate was 133. So that's good. Like I'm just looking to put in pretty solid moderate mileage in the legs on that one. But if we jump now to Wednesday morning, we just had the swim, which was essentially like 20 by 100 is the main set. But then what I did was I just chucked on a 600 at the end because obviously we need to work on some longer endurance stuff. So that's something I'm going to do a bit more regularly now, is just throw on some longer reps in the cool down. So to put it in perspective, that 600 at the end, average pace for that was 152 per 100. So, I mean, it's not great, but it's not terrible either. Like I can kind of get away with it in Ironman, but I really want to get that lower. So that's something I'm going to be working on specifically. Overall, that was 3.7K swim. Average pace over it all was at 145 per 100. But the run that afternoon, what we had that afternoon was just it ended up being 14.5K. When you take into consideration the warm up and the cool down, we averaged 5:04 pace per kilometer. With the main set for that one essentially just being 5 3-minute efforts and then 3 2-minute efforts. So just running those pretty hard around, I mean, the 2-minute efforts, we were low 4 minutes per kilometre, and then the 3-minute efforts were, 4:20 to 4:30 per kilometre, roughly. Now, Thursday morning, this is probably the point where, look, Monday's swim and Tuesday's bike, we didn't do great workouts, but it didn't really affect anything for the rest of the week. But I think Thursday and Friday, this is really where what happened on these days massively negatively affected the Saturday long ride. So Thursday morning, I had to get up at 4 a.m., which is like 2 hours earlier than I normally get up. So already sleep's out of whack. I had pretty much to squeeze in a 90-minute bike into 1 hour before I had to go and get on a flight. So what was planned was 10 by 3 minutes at 300 watts, which would have typically had, a 15-minute warm-up and a 15-minute cool-down. But because I was so short on time, I got a 5-minute warm-up, and then we went straight into 10 by 3 minutes at 300 watts, which actually, to be fair, I got that workout done quite comfortably, which I was really, really impressed with myself to get that done, considering we struggled to hit, 260 watts for 5-minute efforts. But I actually managed to hold, 10 by 3 minutes at 300 watts. So that was great, but I had no time to do a cool down. So I jumped straight off the bike, straight in the shower, got dressed, quick breakfast, and I was on the plane out of there. So that's not great for recovery when you go straight from like threshold bike session. And I mean, I was literally dressed, getting in the taxi, still puffing. So, I didn't really get a chance to flush out the legs, which isn't great for recovery. But essentially, I flew up to Brisbane that day for worked the whole day. We went out for dinner that night, and I didn't get back to the hotel room until like 10 or 11 o'clock, I think. And then I had a 45-minute strength session to do in the hotel room. So massive day, on my feet, running around at work, but then still had that workout in the hotel room. Also, I should say, I've pretty much survived now for, 18 hours on airport food and vending machine food. So not really the healthiest diet. We went out for dinner and had Mexican food. So I am I've had barely any sleep, and I have barely any food. So that's not a great combo, especially because I should also mention that Wednesday night's run, we didn't even get to start that one until 7 o'clock that night because I was getting a bike fit done. So I'll just quickly interject here and mention that bike fit. So one of the cool things we did get to do this week though was I got a bike fit done, so like a professional bike fit done just by a physio in town who had, the full laser set up really. So we covered myself in dots, covered the bike in dots, and we got some really cool images, some really cool measurements of myself and how we can adjust the bike to really fit me. Really the main thing we did is we shuffled the seat back a little bit just to take a bit more pressure off the quads, supposedly cycle a little more efficiently. It does kind of contradict what my coach has said, which is you want to load up your quads and save the hamstrings for the run, but the guy who was doing the bike fit basically said that no, you just want to cycle as efficiently as possible and then run as efficiently as possible. There's no save yourself here or save yourself there. So that's what he was going for, and look, I'll trust the expert. He's a bike fitter by trade, so I'll listen to that. It'd be interesting to see how we go, loading up the hamstrings a bit more on the bike, but I'm going to trust an expert rather than whatever it is I feel like we should do. So I sort of just like to leave everything up to the coach and leave it up to professionals. I don't like to dwell too much on what kind of training we should or shouldn't be doing, regardless of what I might think. There's always smarter people out there. But yeah, that was a really cool bike fit. Let's cut back to me having a whinge. So that was a late night into a really early morning, and then another late night doing that strength workout in the hotel. And then we were back up again at 5 o'clock the next morning to run down to the pool and do a 3K swim. So Friday morning we had a 3K swim, which I essentially did as 8 by 200 in the pool, and then just some 100s at the end of that. And this is probably the first workout of the week where I was like, oh dear, I feel quite tired. I think the last 24 hours had kind of caught up on me there, and I mean, I still got the set done, averaged 143 per 100 in the pool, so that's not really an out of character poor swim, but perceived effort was probably a bit higher than normal. Anyway, I work all day Friday, fly back home Friday afternoon. We don't start Friday's run until 8:47, and Friday's run was essentially, I think it was planned as being a bit over 20k total. It was 15 kilometers at race effort, followed by 1 mile pretty hard, and then warm up and cool down on either side of that, of course. We ended up doing 19K, which we averaged out at 5:34 per kilometer. So, I mean, I was running it in pitch black dark, so it's pretty hard to maintain effort, I find, when you can hardly even see the road. So that's kind of an excuse I would use as to why it was 5:30 per kilometer when it should have been race effort. But also too, my stomach felt terrible and I had almost no energy on that run. It was probably one of the hardest runs I've done in the last few months, and it was 5:30 per kilometer for 20K. It's nothing that should be challenging to me, especially at this stage. So that should have been red flags, and in hindsight, I really should have skipped that run because we didn't finish that until about 11 o'clock that night. I went straight to bed, was completely knackered. I tried to get as much food in as I could, smashed some Gatorade for some electrolytes because I knew I was severely undernourished off very little food and very little sleep for the last 2 days. But nonetheless, straight to bed, and we were up the next morning at, I think, 7 a.m. I got up to start the long ride, which was planned as 6 hours. Now, in all fairness, it was a ride where the coach had basically said, with this ride, just go how you feel. So if you want to just do 6 hours easy, sweet, do 6 hours easy. If you want to do 6 hours hard, go hard, but just get the miles in. I pretty much started out on the road. We did about 1 hour out on the road, but it was, to be fair, it was torrential rain, which, look, I probably should have just ridden through because it could rain on race day, you never know. But I made the decision. I was like, okay, I cannot be bothered to ride out here in the rain. I'm going inside to get on the trainer. And to be fair, that probably was me already in that mindset of, holy crap, I'm tired, I just want to get off the bike. But I go inside and I chuck the bike on the trainer, and we get through about an hour and 54 minutes on the trainer before I am completely knackered. Like, I cannot spin my legs any further. We were pretty much averaging like 150 watts. I mean, that ride was averaged at 170 watts because we did like the epic KOM on Zwift. But even still, I was trying to just take it super easy for the last half hour, but I had zero energy left. So I had to cut that long ride after just shy of 3 hours, which is definitely not what we want, especially considering we're like 6 or 7 weeks out from Ironman now. And then we had a 20-minute break planned off that, but obviously we didn't do that because we didn't even finish the ride. I'll jump to today's workout, and then we'll go back and we'll have a quick chat about this Saturday long ride. But today we had a 28K long run, which is what I did. Sort of just progressively ran that one from 5:30 up to about race pace, so 5:30 per kilometer, and we just slowly built that up to about 4:55 per kilometer. So 28Ks, average pace 5:05 for the whole run. I felt pretty good on this one, and you know what, I could have kept going and we typically do 32K on the long runs, but I cut it at 28K just to make sure that I was in fact fully recovered. Yesterday after the long ride, I pretty much got off the bike, walked straight up, laid down in bed, slept for like 2 hours, and then got back up and just tried to lay down and eat as much food as I can throughout the day, just trying to get myself actually back into a state of, positive recovery, which today I'm feeling pretty good. I think I've got over it. I slept for ages last night, got a great sleep in this morning. I think I'm just back on track now, but what really happened was I just ran into a massive deficit. Like, when you're an age group triathlete and you're working as a full-time worker and trying to do 20 hours a week, I think it's inevitable, like, sometimes life will get in the way. And that's exactly what happened this week. And it goes to show, I think, the value of consistency and just sticking to a typical routine. I mean, I took 2 days where I still got all my sessions in. I still ate fairly healthy, and I still got at least 5 hours sleep both nights. So that's not too little, but the effect it had was massive. Like, I couldn't even manage a 3-hour ride when typically I'm doing 6 hour plus rides. So that's, my energy levels were bottomed out. I think another thing too, and I haven't really mentioned it on the training log, but I work 40 hours a week and I train as much as I do, obviously, as you can see in the training logs, but I'm really lucky in that I have a work from home office job. So basically, as soon as I finish training in the morning at 8:30 in the morning, I'm sitting down, I'm logging on for work, but I'm relaxed. I'm eating, I'm drinking, I'm refueling and recovering all day before my next workout in the afternoon. So a lot of people I see commenting on the videos, on the Facebook posts, they've got kids or they work you know, in a job where they have to be standing up, running around all day, traveling to and from work every day. I mean, I had to travel for work 2 days in the week, and it had a massive negative impact on me. So for the athletes out there that are working 5 days a week and are up all night with kids, or, you know, having to cook dinner and do all those sorts of things, I couldn't imagine the difficulties of trying to maintain a solid Ironman prep and balancing life as well. So I'm really fortunate to be in a position where I can train very, very consistently. And I think that what I've learned here on this Saturday was how invaluable that is, to be able to actually put in day after day, week after week, really solid, consistent training. Without that, there's no chance I could have increased my volume as quickly as I have, up to around the 20-hour mark. Another thing as well, I mean, looking back, when I first sort of started the training log, or I first sort of started prepping to Ironman, you know, I knew myself that it wasn't going to be just a continuous linear progression towards Ironman. Like, it wasn't just going to be a good week after a good week after a good week. There's always going to be setbacks, and to have experienced a setback like this that isn't too severe, I mean, I'm lucky in a way, because things could be a lot worse, is what I'm sort of thinking. If I had just got up that Saturday and the workout was terrible, but I didn't know why it was terrible, that would be way more alarming than being able to say, okay, well, look, I barely ate anything and I barely slept for 2 days. So, look, fair enough. Of course, I'm going to feel like crap on a long ride. I think the other thing to mention too is, like, looking forwards, what have we got? Like 6 or 7 weeks, I think, now until Ironman. It's not going to be linear. It's not going to be linear progression. Not every session is going to get better and better and better. I'm still going to have setbacks in the next 6 weeks, and being able to accept that and not get too bogged down in it, not dwell on the fact that we didn't have a great week or a great, you know, Saturday long ride, which is kind of, in my opinion, one of the most important workouts of the week. If we're not, like, I can't let myself get bogged down on this, oh, that wasn't a great workout. You just have to take it and move on, and it's going to happen again. And I think accepting that is very important. So yeah, overall, like, it's not the most exciting video this week. We didn't have any epic workout montages or any workouts where we really crushed it. Like Thursday morning's 10 by 3 minutes at 300 watts. That's great. I'm pretty stoked to have done that. But I really want to share this one because it's kind of like a bit more of a raw truth of Ironman prep. Like, there's not every workout, not every week is as great as they all seem online. I'm not just going to sit here and talk about how amazing the progression is, because look, some weeks things get in the way, life happens, and you're not always going to progress one week after another. There's going to be workouts that aren't great. I'm certainly not proud of, you know, 2 hours and 50 minutes is my long ride where we averaged like 24 kilometers an hour on the bike. That's not very impressive. So it's one that I want to share just to show that kind of brutal truth of Ironman. But look, I'm feeling great now. I'm ready to get into another week. Next week's going to be pretty much the biggest week we've ever done of training. So I'm pretty certain that I'll be able to handle it. Pretty confident that I'm fully recovered after a few rough days last week. So we're looking forward now to the next few tough weeks leading into Ironman Australia. I'm still feeling quite confident, so hopefully we can put together a good prep in the lead up. It's going to be good to share next week's workouts.